Vimalkirti Nirdesh Sutra. Chapter 10. The feast brought by the emanated incarnation. Thereupon, the Venerable Shariputra thought to himself, if these great bodhisattvas do not adjourn before noontime, when are they going to eat? The Lichavi Vimalkirti, knowing telepathically the thought of the Venerable Shariputra, spoke to him. Reverend Shariputra, the Tathagata has taught the 8 liberations. You should concentrate on those liberations, listening to the Dharma, with a mind free of preoccupations with material things. Just wait a minute, Reverend Shariputra, and you will eat such a food as you have never before tasted. Then, the Lichavi Vimalkirti set himself in such a concentration, and performed such a miraculous feat, that those bodhisattvas and those great disciples were enabled to see the universe called Sarva Gandha Sugandha, which is located in the direction of the zenith, beyond as many Buddha fields as there are sands in 42 Ganges rivers. There the Tathagata named Sugandha Kuta resides, lives, and is manifest. In that universe, the trees emit a fragrance that far surpasses all the fragrances, human and divine, of all the Buddha fields of the 10 directions. In that universe, even the names disciple and solitary sage do not exist, and the Tathagata Sugandha Kuta teaches the Dharma to a gathering of bodhisattvas only. In that universe, all the houses, the avenues, the parks, and the palaces are made of various fragrances of the perfumes. The fragrance of the food, eaten by those bodhisattvas, pervades immeasurable universes. At this time, the Tathagata Sugandha Kuta sat down with his bodhisattvas to take his meal, and the deities called Gandha Vyuhara, who were all devoted to the Mahayana, served and attended upon the Buddha and his bodhisattvas. Everyone in the gathering at the house of Vimalkirti was able to see distinctly this universe, wherein the Tathagata Sugandhakuta and his bodhisattvas were taking their meal. The Lichavi Vimalkirti addressed the whole gathering of bodhisattvas. Good O sirs, is there any among you who would like to go to that Buddha field to bring back some food? But, restrained by the supernatural power of Manjushri, none of them volunteered to go. The Lichavi Vimalkirti said to Crown Prince Manjushri, O Manjushri, are you not ashamed of such a gathering? Manjushri replied, O noble sir, did not the Tathagata declare, those who are unlearned should not be despised? Then, the Lichavi Vimalkirti, without rising from his couch, magically emanated an incarnation bodhisattva, whose body was of golden color, adorned with the auspicious signs and marks, and of such an appearance that he outshone the whole assembly. The Lichavi Vimalkirti addressed that incarnated bodhisattva, noble son, go in the direction of the zenith, and when you have crossed as many Buddha fields as there are sands in 42 Ganges rivers, you will reach a universe called Sarvagandha Sugandha, where you will find the Tathagata Sugandha Kuta taking his meal. Go to him and, having bowed down at his feet, make the following request of him. The Lichavi Vimalkirti bows down 100,000 times at your feet, O Lord, and asks after your health. If you have but little trouble, little discomfort, little unrest, if you are strong, well, without complaint, and living in touch with supreme happiness. Having thus asked after his health, you should request of him. Vimalkirti asks the Lord to give me the remains of your meal, with which he will accomplish the Buddha work in the universe called Saha. Thus, those living beings with inferior aspirations will be inspired with lofty aspirations, and the good name of the Tathagata will be celebrated far and wide. At that, the incarnated bodhisattva said, Very good, to the Lichavi Vimalkirti, and obeyed his instructions. In sight of all the bodhisattvas, he turned his face upward, and was gone, and they saw him no more. When he reached the universe Sarvagandha Sugandha, he bowed down at the feet of the Tathagata Sugandhakuta, and said, O Lord, the Bodhisattva Vimalkirti, bowing down at the feet of the Lord, greets the Lord, saying thus, "Do you have any little trouble, little discomfort, and little unrest? Are you strong, well, without complaint, and living in touch with the supreme happiness?" He then requests, having bowed down 100,000 times at the feet of the Lord, "May the Lord be gracious and give to me the remains of his meal, in order to accomplish the Buddha work in the universe called Saha." Then, those living beings who aspire to inferior ways may gain the intelligence to aspire to the great dharma of the Buddha, and the name of the Buddha will be celebrated far and wide. At that, the bodhisattvas of the Buddha field of the Tathagata Sugandhakuta were astonished, and asked the Tathagata Sugandhakuta, "Lord, where is there such a great being as this? Where is the universe Saha? What does he mean by those who aspire to inferior ways?" Having thus been questioned by those bodhisattvas, the Tathagata Sugandhakuta said, "Noble sons, the universe Saha exists beyond as many Buddha fields, in the direction of the Nadir, as there are sands in 42 Ganges rivers. There the Tathagata Shakyamuni teaches the Dharma to living beings that aspire to the inferior ways, in that Buddha field, tainted with 5 corruptions. There the Bodhisattva Vimalkirti, who lives in the inconceivable liberation, teaches the Dharma to the Bodhisattvas. He sends this incarnation Bodhisattva here, in order to celebrate my name, in order to show the advantages of this universe, and in order to increase the roots of virtue of those Bodhisattvas." The Bodhisattvas exclaimed, "How great must that Bodhisattva be himself, if his magical incarnation is thus endowed with supernatural power, strength, and fearlessness." The Tathagata said, "The greatness of that Bodhisattva is such, that he sends magical incarnations to all the Buddha fields of the 10 directions, and all these incarnations accomplish the Buddha work for all the living beings, in all those Buddha fields." Then, the Tathagata Sugandhakuta poured some of his food, impregnated with all perfumes, into a fragrant vessel, and gave it to the incarnation Bodhisattva. And the 90 million bodhisattvas of that universe volunteered to go along with him, and they said, "O Lord, we also would like to go to that universe Saha, to see, honor, and serve the Buddha Shakyamuni, and to see Vimalkirti and those bodhisattvas." The Tathagata declared, "Noble sons, go ahead, if you think it is the right time. But, lest those living beings become mad and intoxicated, go without your perfumes. And, lest those living beings of the Saha world become jealous of you, change your bodies to hide your beauty. And do not conceive ideas of contempt and aversion for that universe." Why so? Because, noble sons, a Buddha field is a field of pure space, but the Lord Buddhas, in order to develop living beings, do not reveal, all at once, the pure realm of the Buddha. Then the incarnation Bodhisattva took the food, and departed with the 90 million Bodhisattvas, and by the power of the Buddha, and the supernatural operation of Vimalkirti, disappeared from that universe Sarvagandha Sugandha, and stood again in the house of Vimalkirti, in a fraction of a second. The Lichavi Vimalkirti created 90 million lion thrones, exactly like those already there, and then all the Bodhisattvas were seated. Then, the incarnation Bodhisattva gave the vessel, full of food to Vimalkirti, and the fragrance of that food permeated the entire great city of Vaishali, and its sweet perfume spread throughout 100 universes. Within the city of Vaishali, the Brahmins, householders, and even the Lichavi chieftain Chandra Chattara, having noticed this fragrance, were amazed and filled with wonder. They were so cleansed in body and mind, that they came at once to the house of the Vimalkirti, along with all 84,000 of the Lichavis. Seeing there the Bodhisattvas, seated on the high, wide, and beautiful lion thrones, they were filled with admiration and great joy. They all bowed down to those great disciples, and bodhisattvas, and then sat down to one side. And the gods of the earth, the gods of the desire world, and the gods of the material world, attracted by the perfume, also came to the house of Vimalkirti. Then, the Lichavi Vimalkirti spoke to the elder Shariputra, and the great disciples, reverence, eat of the food of the Tathagata. It is ambrosia, perfumed by the great compassion. But do not fix your minds in narrow-minded attitudes, lest you be unable to receive its gift. But some of the disciples had already had the thought, how can such a huge multitude eat such a small amount of food? Then the incarnation Bodhisattva said to those disciples, do not compare, venerable ones, your own wisdom and merits with the wisdom and the merits of the Tathagata. Why so? Because, for example, the four great oceans might dry up, but this food would never be exhausted. If all living beings were to eat for an eon, an amount of this food, equal to Mount Sumeru in size, it would not be depleted. Why so? Because issued from inexhaustible morality, concentration, and wisdom, the remains of the food of the Tathagata, contained in this vessel, cannot be exhausted. Indeed, the entire gathering was satisfied by that food, and the food was not at all depleted. Having eaten that food, there arose in the bodies of those bodhisattvas, disciples, shakras, brahmas, lokapalas, and other living beings, bliss just like the bliss of the bodhisattvas of the universe Sarva Sukha Mandita. And from all the pores of their skin, arose a perfume, like that of the trees that grow in the universe Sarva Gandha Sugandha. Then, the Lichavi Vimalkirti knowingly addressed those bodhisattvas, who had come from the Buddha field of the Lord Tathagata Sugandha Kuta. O noble sirs, how does the Tathagata Sugandha Kuta teach his dharma? Then, they replied, the Tathagata does not teach the dharma by means of sound and language. He disciplines the bodhisattvas only by the means of perfumes. At the foot of each perfume tree sits a bodhisattva, and the trees emit perfumes, like this one. From the moment they smell that perfume, the bodhisattvas attain the concentration, called the source of all bodhisattva virtues. From the moment they attain that concentration, all the bodhisattva virtues are produced in them. Those bodhisattvas then asked the Lichavi Vimalkirti, how does the Buddha Shakyamuni teach the dharma? Vimalkirti replied, good O sirs, these living beings here are hard to discipline. Therefore, he teaches them with discourses appropriate for the disciplining of the wild and uncivilized. How does he discipline the wild and uncivilized? What discourses are appropriate? Here they are. This is hell. This is the animal world. This is the world of the Lord of Death. These are the adversities. These are the rebirths, with crippled faculties. These are physical misdeeds, and these are the retributions for the physical misdeeds. These are verbal misdeeds, and these are the retributions for the verbal misdeeds. These are the mental misdeeds, and these are the retributions for mental misdeeds. This is killing. This is stealing. This is sexual misconduct. This is lying. This is backbiting. This is harsh speech. This is frivolous speech. This is covetousness. This is malice. This is false view. These are their retributions. This is miserliness, and this is its effect. This is immorality. This is hatred. This is sloth. This is the fruit of sloth. This is false wisdom, and this is the fruit of false wisdom. These are the transgressions of the precepts. This is the vow of personal liberation. This should be done, and that should not be done. This is proper, and that should be abandoned. This is an obscuration, and that is without obscuration. This is sin, and that rises above sin. This is the path, and that is the wrong path. This is virtue, and that is evil. This is blameworthy, and that is blameless. This is defiled, and that is immaculate. This is mundane, and that is transcendental. This is compounded, and that is uncompounded. This is passion, and that is purification. This is life, and that is liberation. Thus, by means of these varied explanations of the Dharma, the Buddha trains the minds of those living beings who are just like wild horses. Just as wild horses, or wild elephants, will not be tamed unless the goad pierces them to the marrow, so the living beings, who are wild and hard to civilize, are disciplined only by the means of discourses about all kinds of miseries. The Bodhisattvas said, "Thus is established the greatness of the Buddha Shakyamuni. It is marvelous how, concealing his miraculous power, he civilizes the wild living beings that are poor and inferior." And the Bodhisattvas who settle in a Buddha field of such intense hardships must have the inconceivably great compassion. The Licchavi Vimalkirti declared, "So be it, O good sirs. It is, as you say." The great compassion of the Bodhisattvas, who reincarnate here, is extremely firm. In a single lifetime, in this universe, they accomplish much benefit for living beings. So much benefit for living beings could not be accomplished in the universe Sarva Gandha Sugandha, even in 100,000 aeons. Why do? Because, O good sirs, in this Saha universe, there are 10 virtuous practices which do not exist in any other Buddha field. What are these 10 practices? Here they are: to win the poor by generosity, to win the immoral by morality, to win the hateful by means of tolerance, to win the lazy by means of effort, to win the mentally troubled by means of concentration, to win the falsely wise by means of true wisdom, to show those suffering from the 8 adversities how to rise above them, to teach the Mahayana to those of narrow-minded behavior, to win those who have not produced the roots of virtue by means of the roots of virtue, and to develop living beings without interruption through the 4 means of unification. Those who engage in these 10 virtuous practices do not exist in any other Buddha field. Again the Bodhisattvas asked, how many qualities must a Bodhisattva have to go safe and sound to a pure Buddha field after he transmigrates at death away from this Saha universe? Vimalkirti replied, after he transmigrates at death away from this Saha universe, a Bodhisattva must have 8 qualities to reach a pure Buddha field, safe and sound. What are the 8? He must resolve to himself, I must benefit all living beings, without seeking even the slightest benefit for myself. I must bear all the miseries of all the living beings, and give all my accumulated roots of virtue to all living beings. I must have no resentment toward any living being. I must rejoice in all Bodhisattvas as if they were the teacher. I must not neglect any teachings, whether or not I have heard them before. I must control my mind, without coveting the gains of others, and without taking pride in gains of my own. I must examine my own faults, and not blame others for their faults. I must take pleasure in being consciously aware, and must truly undertake all the virtues. If a Bodhisattva has these 8 qualities, when he transmigrates at death, away from the Saha universe, he will go safe and sound to a pure Buddha field. When the Licchavi Vimalkirti and the Crown Prince Manjushri had thus taught the Dharma to the multitude gathered there, 100,000 living beings conceived the spirit of unexcelled, perfect enlightenment, and 10,000 Bodhisattvas attained the tolerance of the birthlessness of things.